Hey friends, it's Gloria and welcome back to another video. I'm going to be doing my July reading wrap-up. I read quite a few books, so let's talk about them. I read some books for Jane Austen July, which is an event here on BookTube celebrating Jane Austen, reading some of her main books, unfinished works, as well as retellings and books inspired by her and her time period that she lived in and wrote. And I read some retellings as well as a main book, even though I finished Sense and Sensibility in August, but I'm going to talk about it here because it just makes sense. So I started off for Jane Austen July reading A Most Agreeable Murder by Julia Seals. I think this was recommended to me in person by someone that read it and really enjoyed it. This is a Jane Austen inspired murder mystery set in England. We have a female main character that shouldn't like crime and reading about murder, but she likes it and that's frowned upon. And her family are sent to this estate during a stormy weekend. There's a murder that takes place and she has to join up with the detective to solve the crime and the shenanigans that goes down. I give this 2 stars. I thought it was way overly silly and just ridiculous to me. I mean, there's like werewolves and ghosts, just kind of stupid stuff. I totally get why people could enjoy this maybe in the fall for like a Jane Austen silly fun murder mystery, but I just kind of thought it was stupid. But that's totally me and my personality. I think I learned from this that if I'm going to read a retelling, then it needs to be serious, more based on the actual events. For example, Unequal Affection, a Pride and Prejudice retelling that I read earlier, still my favorite book of the year. Nothing has really beat that, and that was really like true to Austen, similar to the other Bennet sister. This just didn't work for me. Then I picked up Jane of Austen by Hilary Manton Lodge. Thanks so much for commenting and recommending this book to me. This is a Sense and Sensibility retelling, and I didn't realize it was a Sense and Sensibility retelling or inspired by until I finished the book, and then I was like, shoot, I gotta read the real thing. But this one is set in the contemporary time period. This was published in 2017. Follow 3 sisters living in San Francisco that have some bad luck, and they need to move to Austin, Texas to family to start this tea business, this tea shop, and it's their various kind of love lives and the drama that goes down. I totally loved the romance between the main character and an ex-Marine, again based off of Sense and Sensibility, Marianne and the Colonel Brandon. I love that each chapter ended with a recipe. I loved all of the descriptions around tea drinking because I'm such a big tea drinker. I also love the descriptions of like Austin and Texas, and I actually visited Austin, Texas before. I loved that city. It was so fun for like a girls' weekend. I just thought this was so sweet, so wonderful. I give 4 stars. I totally enjoyed my time with it. If you're looking for a modern contemporary Jane Austen inspired novel, this one was just so fun. So that made me pick up Sense and Sensibility. Again, I finished this in August, so technically it's an August book, but I'm going to talk about it here because it makes sense. I had a harder time with this one. I would say the first like 75% of the book, I was like, oh, this is like 2-star territory. Like, it was just fine. I didn't hate it, but I was not caring about it at all. I thought Marianne was stupid. I thought Eleanor was just kind of sad, and I'm like, why is no one talking to each other? Just tell your feelings, explain what's going on. You're keeping everything in. And then I also found this one to just be so much more dialogue heavy than Pride and Prejudice and even Emma was for me. Like, I didn't have the best sense of place with this one, actually. I just thought it was all dialogue between characters and really boring dialogue that kept going on and on and on about nothing, and I'm just like, can you please move on? I found myself bored. And then I think the end of the book redeemed it for sure. The conversation that Eleanor, one of the sisters, had with Willoughby, as well as just some things that finally came to light, and it's like really feels like a miscommunication trope the whole book. I hate when characters don't talk to each other. I understand that like as an author you need that to build some suspense, but I hate that theme, and I feel like this book more than any I've read recently in many years just has that, where why don't you guys just sit down and talk it out? But this is also me reading out of the time and place that this was written, and maybe people back then just really didn't talk about their feelings because that wasn't, you know, common. This follows 2 sisters mainly and their love lives and the sadness of the events there and how they were treated kind of terribly by certain men and the drama of society during that time. This is my 4th Jane Austen novel. Pride and Prejudice still way up top, and this comes in 3rd place. So Pride and Prejudice, Emma, Sense and Sensibility, and then Persuasion. Although this and Persuasion kind of tied with least favorite for me, but I do see the parallels between these 2, and I think if you love Sense and Sensibility, then you probably really love Jane of Austen. Moving on, I read 2 books for a library themed reading vlog where I work at the library and I was checking in materials, and I let that dictate what I pick up next. So I picked up The Secrets of Midwives by Sally Hepworth. This is also a contemporary book. Who am I reading so many contemporary books? But that's kind of the theme for the year based on my mid-year check-in. I'm reading a lot more contemporary than I usually do. But this follows 3 generations, 3 three midwives, the grandmother, the mother, and the daughter, and their separate stories and the secrets that their lives hold. This one I liked, but also was kind of fine. I liked some storylines way more than the other, than the younger one. Her whole like accidental pregnancy trope, I realize that is something I hate in books and don't really want to read about it. Although I like midwives and pregnancy, I don't like the whole you're not married and you're just having a baby and your life's a mess kind of thing. But I really love the midwifery elements of this book. You can watch the vlog for more of my thoughts, similar to Shelterwood by Lisa Wingate. I shared more of my thoughts in that vlog. But this newer historical fiction release by Lisa Wingate follows two different timelines and has this orphaned, lost children being mistreated kind of theme, as well as a female park ranger in the 90s and uncovering dead bodies and finding out the mystery of things going on. I think after reading this, I solidified that Lisa Wingate, although has written some good historical fiction, hasn't written anything outstanding or profound for me to keep going with her. So I think after reading this one especially, I think I'm done with her as an author. But this wasn't a bad book. I think a lot of people are gonna love this one. Next, for a nonfiction, I picked up The Boys in the Boat by Daniel James Brown in honor of the Olympics. This has been on my TBR for way too long and so many people love it. I was very hesitant to start this because I don't care about sports, like at all, especially rowing. I'm like, what? I could care less about that. And my headspace just hasn't really been in the mood for nonfiction lately. I'm just more reading fun stuff. But this was thoroughly enjoyable. I will say I understand the hype. I understand why this book is so highly rated. I think this author does an incredible job of storytelling, especially to someone who could care less about rowing. He made me care about it. Like, I was sitting there just like, I know what's gonna happen. I know that this team is gonna win the Olympics in the 1936. They're gonna get the gold. But as he's describing the rowing event, I'm like sitting there like almost biting my nails with excitement of just like how it's all gonna unfold. It really follows one of the main guys on the boat, his main storyline, his life, his upbringing, how he became to be a rower on this team, as well as follows the coaches and their lives for the University of Washington rowing team in 1936, as well as what was happening in Berlin and Germany as they were hosting the 1936 Olympics, and kind of the perspective from Hitler on the Olympics as well. And you just get to know kind of like the start of, maybe not the start, but the competitive rowing scene on the West Coast and East Coast. It was just so fascinating. And again, I don't care about this at all, this topic. Obviously right now everyone loves watching the Olympics and it like brings the world together in a really fun way. I don't like hate sports, I just don't really care about them most of the time. I have watched some Olympic events, but I like also don't really have the time. But this was just such a fun read, and again, this author did a great job of storytelling to someone who doesn't care about the story and the premise. I get it. I get the hype for this one. Next, I have the book here, but I'm just gonna put up a picture because this book has nothing on it, this library book. But I read The End of Summer by Rosamunde Pilcher. I'm still on the Rosamunde Pilcher train. I'm kind of determined to read a lot of her books, and this was an audiobook that was available to me on Libby. It's a short 5-hour audiobook, and I picked it up because, you know, the end of summer, the end of the season, her books are very seasonal, so I want to read them in the season that they're set. This one definitely felt more of a September read, so I should have maybe waited till then, or would recommend, if you're interested in Pilcher and reading this one, read it more of like a September, because it really does feel like summer's ending and the weather's getting cool, which makes sense from the title. But I did not like this one. Definitely the worst Pilcher I've read so far. It's a shorter book, and it's about cousins being in love. So it was very incestual and it was gross. This book was written in the 70s, and it follows a woman that grew up in England, but she lives in California with her dad, and they have a weird relationship, and then she's called back to England to visit her grandma and her cousin there that she kind of had a big crush on when she was a teenager, and he professes his love to her, and they're like kind of go on dates, and then a bunch of weird stuff gets revealed. It was gross. I was like, no, I don't want to read about these cousins being in love with each other. It was super weird. I absolutely did not like this one. I only give it 2 stars because Rosamunde Pilcher is amazing at sense of place, and she gets nature description writing so well. I loved the setting of California at first, and then in Scotland as well, and some of those themes I absolutely loved, but the main storyline and the main characters were garbage, so I definitely did not enjoy that. And then I don't have much to say on these next 3 books because they're just the continuation of the Maisie Dobbs series. So I read Among the Mad, The Mapping of Love and Death, and A Lesson in Secrets. These are books 6, 7, and 8 in the Maisie Dobbs series. There's 18 books total. I read and absolutely fell in love with the first book last month, and it was a new favorite series, and so I'm just chugging along. There's not really much to say. I think A Lesson in Secrets, or maybe The Mapping of Love and Death, I can't really remember because I've read them kind of back to back. One of them I liked a lot. I gave 4 stars. The rest have been more in the 3-star territory. I don't really care in too much detail about the mystery in each of these books, but I love the exploration of Maisie's character and her growth and her relationship with her friends and some of the characters that we already know and love. I'm still really enjoying them, so I will continue the series. I don't know how many I'll read each month, but I think I can definitely finish by the end of the year. My goal was end of summer, but that's not gonna happen unless we count September as the end of summer, technically, maybe in August and September, I'll read all 18. I don't know. We'll see. But I'm still really enjoying them. And they're fantastic audiobooks. And they're just so great. I love that World War II is coming up. So like we know something big's gonna happen. And she's also being swept up in the like undercover spy military aspect of things rather than just a detective and psychologist. So she's definitely moving up the ranks, and I feel like I'm interested to see where she's gonna go when the war breaks out again and what role she's going to play in that in the later books. So I'm very eager to continue on. I hopefully will read some more in August. And that wraps up my main reading. And then I just wanted to end with absolutely the most beautiful board book I think I've read since having a baby. And I've read so many. I think I've read over like 100 something board books at this point. I read new ones all the time to Finn. I mark them in Goodreads because I'm trying to keep track of all the books I read to him, but I don't talk about them in my video because that will be way too much. But I do want to highlight now and again some favorites. Unfortunately, Finn didn't really love this one because he doesn't really care about new books from the library. He just wants to read the books that he's familiar with. But I thought this was so gorgeous. A Seed Will Grow by Sabrina Moyle and Eunice Moyle. This is like the most beautiful board book, and it has like stunning flaps, and it's all about seeds and how they grow and the rain and the sun, and oh my gosh, the flaps. Again, the colors, I love the bright colors. This is just like the most beautiful gift idea. I'm definitely giving this to a friend of mine. All of these little fruits and vegetables open up, and this little bird, it's so beautiful. Anyways, I just wanted to share. This was the most beautiful board book that I've read so far, and would highly recommend if you're interested in board books. I know a few of you like the recommendations. So that wraps up my July reading. What do you think of my picks? Do you agree or disagree with any of my thoughts? And I want to know, what was your most favorite book that you read in July? Any recommendations for me? Because I'll always take your recommendations. I love getting them from you guys. Thanks so much for watching and spending some time with me today, and I'll see you guys in another book video soon. Bye!